I'd always felt like I had to have, 250,000 followers on Instagram and, an email list of 15,000 and things like that. And actually,
Mm.
I don't need that, and I don't really even want it. I don't need to be a public figure.
Mm.
I'd much rather look after a handful of clients each month that are paying me really good money, and have that more intimate relationship with them. But that does mean it needs to be a higher price point. So that's where we're at now.
So sales off the back of the last, did you say it was around 17?
I did 7 sales at 14.25, and one also signed up as a one-to-one client, which was a real surprise because I thought she was going to be either or. And she just said, yeah, we'll do both. Okay, she got a little discount, but only, 275, I think, was the discount on both.
Nice.
So that was 7,200 for coaching one-to-one as well.
Nice. Very
Mm.
cool. So
yeah, total sales just over 17,000.
All right, today's session we have Phil in the house. Give him a hand. Well done for joining the 10K club, buddy. Congrats. How does it feel?
It feels good. It feels easier than I thought it was going to, if I'm really honest. I think I expected it to take this kind of seismic shift, and it doesn't. It's just little nudges in the right direction.
Nice. And so where were you before? What do you think was the biggest problem that you had that allowed you to make the decision to join us?
To join you, I was in a place where I had so many different programs that I was trying to launch. So my reaction to not seeing money in the bank was, let's build another program, launch it, build another program, launch it. So at one stage I had like 12, 13 different programs that I was trying to launch during a year. So I was absolutely burnt out with doing webinar launches, and not getting any results on those programs either, selling like, maybe £1,000, £2,000 worth. And then that would have to do until 2 months time when I could build another program. So yeah, completely overwhelmed. And things were bleak, back there during lockdown. I went from doing lots of face-to-face coaching, flying around the world, spending just a little bit more than I was earning, and ended up in a place where we had zero income. And I can remember picking my little boy up from school, him in one hand, bag of food from the food bank in the other hand. I mean, it was rough, really rough. And yeah, so that's kind of where I was at when I found you.
Wow. Look, that's very common. That's something that we hear a lot. Like, just if I could dig a little deeper into that problem, because a lot of entrepreneurs do think, like, if I create more, then I must make more. And, I'd say 95% of people in the coaching consultancy industry fail because of that. Like, let's just put more out. Let's just create more products. Why do you think that was there I'm always fascinated to where you think that came from, or what you'd seen, or other people's models.
Part of it was, so I'd been through a load of training with Brendan Burchard, who I think is awesome and amazing. But what I now realize was he was teaching me how to drive on the motorway, and I needed someone to show me how to start the car. It's like way advanced, you're way ahead. He's talking about this kind of, let's do £1 million year, $1 million year. And I'm like, okay, can we pay the rent first? Would that be okay? So I needed something that was a bit more accessible. But also, I think the big difference was I'd never built programs with my customers before. So then you're just mind reading and guessing what they might need, and then trying to market that to them. So I think that was the big switch, was actually creating the program with the customers live.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I agree. I think Brendan is amazing. And it's not, sometimes people can't see this massive infrastructure behind someone's business. And then it's also understanding, I don't think a lot of people are very clear on exactly how to hit like 10Ks, 20Ks, 30Ks, consistent months, build that infrastructure, and then start scaling. And I'm not sure if that's really clear for a lot of people today. They follow, a really big brand with a big influencer, and try and copy someone's businesses who's doing much more. So yeah, that makes sense. Then going to the point of creating with client, because that's obviously it's counterintuitive for most people think it's going to be I don't know, like they think it's going to be this really difficult thing, but it actually works out really simple to get cash flow in. You then design something that contours your client's objections, so therefore you become better in the process. You become more aligned with your client's objections. You make sales more efficiently. You know, what was your initial feelings to that as a concept?
I think I'm not used to not having the entire map in front of me. And it was a real leap of faith just to realize that actually all you need is real clarity over the next step, and trusting yourself and trusting the process, that actually the next step after that will become clear when you get there. So it was kind of not having to have that big meta view of everything, just knowing enough to get us to the next week. And also I really did my clients a disservice, because I thought they wanted something that was completely finished, completely polished, me being a guru sat up on a cloud. What I now know is they want me in the trenches with them, and they really enjoyed that creation process with me, and they actually got a lot more out of the program by writing it with me than they would have done if they'd just been watching, you know, pre-recorded videos. So I needed to make that switch about their attitude as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so where are you at stats wise now? I know you've just finished your event and you've got potential sales coming in.
Yeah, so the program that I beta tested last year is not the program that I'm selling now. That's now a bonus on a bigger program, because the price point wasn't enough for me. So that program really, you know, that we beta tested that at 500. I suspect the last price point for it's going to be about 750. So now I'm beta testing a bigger program. That's a bonus. So we're beta testing at 1425, and the end price point for that's going to be 4,000. I don't want to. I guess actually that was the other shift over the last 12 months. Is I'd always felt like I had to have, you know, 250,000 followers on Instagram, and, you know, an email list of 15,000 and things like that. And actually, I don't need that, and I don't really even want it. I don't need to be a public figure. I'd much rather look after a handful of clients each month that are paying me really good money, and have that more intimate relationship with them. But that does mean it needs to be a higher price point. So that's where we're at now.
So sales off the back of the last, did you say it was around 17?
I did 7 sales at 1425, and 1 also signed up as a one-to-one client, which was a real surprise because I thought she was going to be either or. And she just said, yeah, we'll do both. Okay, she got a little discount, but only, you know, 275, I think, was the discount on both.
Nice.
So that was 7,200 for coaching one-to-one as well.
Nice, very cool. So
yeah, total sales just over 17,000.
Nice, well done, bro. What do you think? Was there any so you were in this stuck period? Obviously, now you know what you know. But were there any reservations about joining us, or things you were worried about?
Yeah, God, yeah.
That's good.
Loads. It takes more than hearing you for 20 minutes on Clubhouse to get past all my objections, darling. Well, yeah, I mean, the money was a massive thing. It still is. You know, I can't pretend that you go from go from food bank to where I'm at now and suddenly it's a magic wand and everything's fixed. There's still a lot of work to do there. And to be that broke and investing, that was a bitter pill to swallow, and it was a tough sell on my husband as well. But there was a chunk of me that was a kind of, this is going to be the final roll of the dice. If I don't do this, I'm going to have to go and get a proper job. So that fear was behind it too, because I don't want to do that. And I think on the outside looking in, it was hard to see that it wasn't going to be kind of yet another program that I don't get great results from. So, you know, it did feel a bit like, are we just doing something that we've done before? Because alongside Brendan, I'd also done, you know, 2 or 3 programs with people like James Wedmore. There's like a whole host of gurus that I've signed up to before. So there was a bit of me that, you know, are we just doing the same thing again? But I also went into it with a slightly different attitude, in that I was, not in a nasty way, but I was kind of trying to not trying to catch you out, but it was kind of just do as exactly as you're told, and then there's nowhere to hide. Do you know what I mean? Rather than trying to second guess stuff and go, well, oh, I know Ed's telling me to do that, but if I just do that because I've tried this before, it was like, no, just do as you're told, follow the steps, do as you're told, follow the steps, and then we can turn around in 6 months and go, well, I did it and it didn't work.
I love that.
Not at all. I'm teasing. So yeah, I was a lot more obedient this time around and a bit less smart.
So what do you think was the difference between those, where you're like, what you found with us versus maybe others? Because again, we hear that a lot. A lot of people, I think, they buy a program and they don't have the support in place, or maybe that person's not actually there. That's someone we hear consistently about, like the person that actually that they want to get access to is not consistently, supporting them.
I think part of it was a timing thing. I think I almost had to get to that rock bottom before I was ready to start listening.
Yeah,
it was a real, I certainly don't ever want to go there again, but it was a very humbling and useful process ultimately to get that low, and I needed to strip away a few layers of arrogance, so I was ready to listen. So part of it was just a pure timing thing, I think, for me, and part of it was I don't think I've had programs which have kind of attacked on both fronts before. They either are very practical and then you don't get any of the mindset shifts, or the opposite, it's very woo-woo and then there's actually very little step by step, and it was kind of getting the two together. I think that's been the difference.
Nice. Yeah, I would never put down anyone else's program, because I think anything is going to add on to someone's skill set. And sometimes in life we have to, we have a delusion about where we're at, and we perceive ourselves to be further, and sometimes it takes a couple of times to really get it. So I've got no animosity to anyone else's information or structures. It's I have consumed everyone else's, so I know what's in it. And so the reason that I do that is because I'm someone obsessed with creating something that's really special. And we live and breathe, I live and breathe this stuff. So I totally get that. So look, appreciate that. What do you think? What would you say to someone that was hesitant? You had a lot of questions. You had a lot of objections to it. You are where you are now. But what would you say to someone that was on the edge of making that decision?
I'd say, I don't think I'd push anybody in either direction. You have to do exactly what's right for you, but don't let your lack of faith in yourself be the reason you don't do it. I think that was where I was at. I don't think I was doubting the program as such. It was whether I could make it work. And actually, you don't really need to because Ed's done all the work for you. Just do as you're told. So yeah, I think that would be and I actually, do you know what, I know there's an entire process, but I think most people want to jump in. It is a leap of faith, but I just kind of think do it and let's see how that feels, rather than kind of kicking yourself that you didn't. I think the only other thing I would say is there's a lot in the program, and again, just focus on the next step and then the next step. Otherwise it does look a bit like, whoa, there's a lot to go through, but it's bite-sized chunks, just one step at a time. As long as the next step's clear, then we're all good.
Yeah, makes sense. That, look, I always say, actually, it's got nothing to do with someone's personal belief within themselves. It's got nothing to do with someone's qualifications, nothing to do with their race, their age, their sex, whether they're blessed from someone or not, if they are coachable. But like getting to a stage where people are genuinely coachable, Phil, is actually really difficult today, because the majority have had so many touch points. Most people have listened to a podcast, watched YouTubes, bought books and haven't read it. 95% of people that buy a book don't even read it today. And so there's this concept that most people have, that they're aware of the things that they need, they've got an understanding around it, but there's a completely separation between actually doing the thing and having structures to do it. And it's like kind of reading about riding a bike or reading about swimming watching about swimming, listening to about swimming, saying that you can swim because you've done your research, but then someone throws you in and you're like, shit, I've actually never been swimming before. And you can immediately see that they don't know how to do it. And so it's like, that's an interesting space.
I think also it's realizing that when you're reading books and listening to podcasts, however useful those things are, that is not coaching. That is, you know, sometimes useful information, sometimes not. And people lie when they're doing podcasts. You know, they kind of choose a niche and they're like, oh, it's going to be a really niche product and all the rest of it. But really, they want millions of people following them. So it's got to be this almost kind of generic, quite bland mass market appeal. That's not coaching. You need something that's a lot more targeted to where you're at, and you're not going to get that from something that's designed to appeal to millions.
I like that, my man. So just out of last question, was there anything specific out of the program that you liked the most? Was it, you know, like sometimes people say the closer process, the ad scripts, the one-to-one support, the group consultation clinics, the environment generally as a whole?
The two things that stick out is the weekly, well, the bi-weekly calls, just knowing that you can get
twice a week. So bi-weekly is every other week.
Sorry.
Just so you know.
What's twice a week then? What's the word for that?
Twice a week is twice
a week. Okay, so the calls that we have twice a week, knowing that you can get an answer to a question live really quite quickly. You know, you've never got to wait more than 4 days for an answer. I think that's awesome. And then the other thing, I know it's probably such a small thing, but just having all the slide templates, just knowing that all you've got to do is just change the text, you know, just having that laid out and structured in such a logical way, just saved so much time, and made that whole creation process, which, you know, it can turn into a real rabbit hole where you like designing pretty slides and 4 hours later you've got 3 done. So just to have all of that structured and laid out, just, yeah, that made stuff so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, I love that sort of stuff, and it's surprising how people don't realize the power of like having, you know, especially when it comes to like an online course or, you know, whether it's a webinar, just that stride. Like I always think from a place of what would really have helped me further on to speed up this process. So whenever I'm creating something, I go like, well, what my clients, if I could put that in so that my clients would copy it, then it'll speed up the process. So yeah, look, Phil, appreciate that. But look, thank you, my man. It doesn't work without amazing people like yourself. So give yourself a big hand. I'm excited for the next stages. Automate it all up, and let's get to your next steps, buddy.
Cool.